I'm, generally a fan of Elon Musk. I think what he's done is exciting, but Starlink Wi-Fi in Los Angeles leaves a lot to be desired. For those that don't know, I've been recording from LA for the last 4 weeks, and Cody and Connor have been putting up with me cutting out maybe every 10 minutes. We've got to pause for 40 seconds. Dan, our special guest today, you're going to get a taste of that. So let me just quickly air out some grievances with the Starlink Wi-Fi service. I apologize for the poor connectivity.
What's a podcast without airing some grievances to kick it off,
Yeah, it's kind of what the medium's for, I think. Yeah. Cool. All right, we're here. New episode of Marketing Operations. We've got Dan McCormick, one of the leading innovators in the gummy space. Dan, welcome.
Very excited to be chatting with you guys. I feel like I've been friends with each of you for a while and have never actually spoken to any of you live. So this is a little bit surreal to be finally connecting with you guys outside of DMs on X.
It's actually the only way that I interact with anyone anymore. I'm either DMing them on X or I'm podcasting with them. Those are the extent of my social interactions.
It's kind of a beautiful life, right? This is I'm sure perfect for mental health and everything.
Well, Connor and I are trying to organize an IRL hangout sesh, so we might be, that could be the end of this all if that actually happens.
Oh man, I'm sure the conversation there will be riveting. A bunch of guys that haven't interacted with humans in real life, all hanging out.
I know, I'm nervous,
myself included.
Yeah, sick.
I never know what to say when I meet somebody in person that I've talked to, on X, or even done podcasts or done Zooms. But before you meet them in person, you're like, do I say nice to meet you? Is this the meeting, or do we consider the online stuff the meeting? And it's nice to see you.
Well, jokes aside, has been awesome to follow each of you, both what you're doing with your respective businesses, but also how you're growing kind of the media marketing side of things with the podcasts and the newsletters and all the other things that you do outside of your day job. So it is, jokes aside, really cool to get to chat with you.
Yeah, 100%. Likewise. And we're super stoked to have you on. Before we get into it, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Motion, Prescient, Rich Panel, and House.
So when I took over as head of growth at Hexclad, one of our biggest priorities in 2023 was to grow our revenue, our top line revenue, by scaling paid social, specifically through more creative testing. Everyone knows that as you spend more on Facebook ads, using the same creative, the same landing pages, the same offers, your efficiency gets worse. That is a nature of scaling paid media. As you spend more, you reach more people. As you reach more people, quality of traffic degrades. One way to offset this is by enhancing the amount of creative that you're testing. And like I said, that was a huge strategy of ours in 2023. It continues to be this year. And it's ultimately what let us spend over 50% more year over year while maintaining our one-day click ROAS. We probably 2, 3, maybe even 4x our creative output in 2023. And that allowed us to scale our Facebook account efficiently. Now, Motion allowed us to understand out of that enhanced creative output what was actually working the best. Shots on net is great, but in order to do it effectively, you still need to understand which of those shots on net are doing the best so you can scale it up effectively. In Motion, let us understand what it was working exactly while 4xing our creative output, and ultimately allowed us to scale our Facebook account very efficiently in 2023 compared to 2022. So if you're in the process of setting up your creative flywheel and you're about to really enhance the amount of creative testing that you're putting into your ad account, then you also need a tool like Motion to understand which of those creative tests are working and which ones you should be spending more on and less on and doing more of and less of. So if that's you and that's the stage that your brand is at, then you need to be booking a demo today or creating a free account at motionapp.com. Motion offers a monthly subscription plan so you can dodge those annoying annual contracts. And if you mention the Marketing Operators podcast to Motion sales team, you can get 50% off your first month.
So we can get right into it. I'm a longtime user of Create Gummies, but Dan, maybe you could give a rundown to the audience who you are, a little bit about your background, and what you're doing today.
Yeah. So Dan McCormick, co-founder and CEO of Create Wellness. We make creatine products. We started with the creatine gummy about 2 years ago. We've since kind of moved into a bunch of other creatine forward products. The general idea here being that there's a very long and upwards trend on creatine supplementation in the US, and there's not really yet a modern brand built around creatine. And we think there's a massive opportunity to be that brand that's synonymous with creatine. My background is I've been in e-commerce now for about 7 or 8 years, worked at a bunch of the kind of buzzy venture-backed New York City DTC brands of the late 2010s, like Away and Parade, and learned a lot about what it means to build a modern brand, and also learned some of the mistakes and pitfalls that a lot of these brands fall into. And so in starting Create, it was kind of a learning of, if I were to start one of these brands from scratch with all of those learnings, what are some of those things I can take advantage of? What some of those learnings I can bring into this brand, but also what are some pitfalls I can avoid by design when starting this company? So I always like to say Create is a combination of a personal passion. I've been taking creatine for well over 10 years. I'm not a bodybuilder, but I'm someone that takes my health and wellness seriously, and I've always appreciated creatine as a supplement. But also just from a business perspective, Create was like very intentionally designed with an understanding of what should make a D2C company or CPG company successful today. So it's a natural subscription product. It's high margin. It's a misunderstood and underpenetrated market, but kind of this massive runway to mass market appeal. You can build a really successful e-commerce standalone business, but there's a very natural transition to omni-channel. And so, yeah, it was this Create was the combination of my personal passion and kind of weird obsession with creatine and not understanding why everyone didn't take it, and also kind of a manifestation of all of the learnings that I had built up over the last almost decade at this point around building a CPG brand.
Dude, amazing. We want to get into like team management. I think you've got a really unique structure that I'm excited to talk about. We want to talk about growth strategies. I do want to kind of double click on like just the idea generally. We had Zach Stuck on a couple weeks ago, who's gotten like at this point multiple brands from 0 to 1 to 8 figures, which I think is super exciting. We were talking about like, how do you identify early trends and take advantage of those? And you kind of laid out some of that, like, okay, you don't understand why more people use creatine. I'm curious if it was like always kind of back of mind for you, like, hey, creatine would be a great business. Was there like a light bulb moment? How did you like initially decide to get into it?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was inspired from taking this idea of like misunderstood products and the misunderstanding generally not being based in any kind of logical reason. So we saw companies like Roe, for example, take erectile dysfunction pills in the late 2010s. There was this weird stigma around ED. No brand really wanted to touch it. It wasn't like a product that people really found sexy or appealing. It was really misunderstood. But it turns out with kind of the proper form factor, with the right go-to-market strategy, with the right branding, you could take this product that was largely underpenetrated, no pun intended, but had this like massive market opportunity. And so was looking forever as like someone that was in e-commerce but didn't actually run my own brand for this product that kind of fit a bunch of those characteristics of it's super misunderstood, right? But if you're able to inject a little bit of education, a little bit of modern go-to-market strategy, improve on form factor, even just marginally, there is this whole pool of customers that otherwise like would never even consider taking the product. And that's kind of like with creatine, it's 2 to 3% of the population today that takes creatine. That's wild. It's like a general purpose supplement that almost anyone could meet. And so the thing with creatine is that like 2 to 3% of the general population takes it today. There's no reason why that number should not be magnitudes of order higher. Something like 50, 60, 70% is a believable, I think, penetration rate with a general purpose supplement like creatine. And so I was looking for a product that checked a lot of these boxes and had a really long runway if you were able to establish yourself as the main brand in the category. So that's how I landed on creatine as a supplement. The gummy was really just how can we enter into this market in a way that's not like super commoditized on day one. Creatine is a commodity like collagen, like sodium, like any number of ingredients that you can find in the grocery store. It's a commodity. And I knew that going in. And so the gummy differentiated, a little bit tougher to replicate, creatine specifically held a lot of stigma with it. The gummy was able to kind of toss off some of that stigma. It's not a white powder that looks like cocaine and a narcotic or whatever. And so the gummy was really just a way of how can we make this like a differentiated product and also a product that's marginally better from a consumption experience, because a big belief here with products in general is that if you can just make marginal improvements on convenience, on consumption, on taste, that can actually lead to major changes in behavior. And with a product that you're meant to take on a daily basis, that can have a really really big impact over the long term. So yeah, that's how I landed on creatine.
Totally.
And
Did
you were in the market, right? Sorry, Connor. Real quick, because you said something, Dan, that I just want to like double check. You said you're in the market for this category, right? So like you were presumably like a user of creatine. You knew the market very well. Like this was not a market that you came into from the outside in. Like you were a part of it, so you understood the nuance of it and like where there was opportunity.
Yeah, like a lot of people, I started taking creatine in high school. And, freshman year, I played football, basketball, baseball, thought I was going to be a college athlete. Soon realized my stature was not going to allow me to pursue those long term. So switched sophomore year to being a 3-season runner. But I'd started taking creatine, loved the benefits freshman year, and just never churned off of it. It was probably like one of the few cross-country runners in the country at the time that was supplementing with creatine. Something I just always really enjoyed and never really like experienced the negative benefits that you'd hear about. With creatine, you grow up and you think it, like, especially back in the day, you'd hear that it's a steroid, your hair is going to fall out, your kidneys are going to be destroyed. Like, God forbid you tell your mom you're taking creatine in like 2010, she would think you're on drugs. And so that was never like my personal experience. I never had those negative side effects. So it was always something that was in the back of my head. Fast forward to like 2021, 2022, there was this major spike in creatine demand, and the supply could not catch up with it. And so there was this major shortage. The only creatine that you could buy online in 2022 was this product, Creatine HCl from Raw Labs. It's actually GNC's, who's a great partner, but GNC's like white label HCl brand. It was the only one you could find online, and it literally tastes like battery acid. And so taking that product, that was the first kind of light switch moment for me. I was like, wow, this literally is inedible, and people are forced to take this. If you can just make it a little bit marginally better than this, you can unlock this huge market of people that would potentially be taking this on a daily basis. But yeah, it's something that I have taken for a while and continue to take today.
Dude, amazing. All right, I want to get into the team management stuff, but before that, obviously, it sounds like a fantastic opportunity, huge market. You think it could be 100 million plus people in America taking creatine at some point. Like that's obviously super compelling. Was there anything else you considered at the time? Anything else that checked all the boxes of being what you would think would be a great D2C brand?
Not really. At the time, I was running a business not all dissimilar from the podcast business that you guys are doing now with my brother. And the plan was, let's run Not Boring Media, which is a newsletter, podcast, a bunch of online things. The plan was to do that with him for a period of time and run the media business, invest in companies, get out of the D2C game. And then kind of came up with the idea while doing that, was running it on the side for a while, and then eventually thought the opportunity was big enough and important enough that it made sense to do it full time.
Totally. Awesome. Everyone knows ad comments are super important for social proof, but they're a mess to handle. Spam, trolls, customer questions, good reviews. At Ridge, we had 4 full-time people to moderate all of this, which was expensive but necessary. One of the reasons we moved to Rich Panel is we knew they'd be launching new AI tools, and they just launched their AI social media manager that handles all of our ad comments. It's built right into Rich Panel, our help desk software, which no other help desk has anything like. In the first 2 months, AI handled 11,000 comments, saved us 760 hours of work. It's like 4 months of one person's time. And the best part is it didn't cost us anything else. It came with our regular subscription. If you want to learn more about Rich Panel, you can join one of their weekly migration webinars. It's 40 minutes. They show you the platform, how to switch from your current system, and how much money you can save. It's great for CX teams to evaluate Rich Panel and see if it's a fit for your business. If you want to add social media superpowers while becoming more efficient, go to richpanel.com. Book a spot for their weekly migration webinar and get your CX team a spot too. Okay, so what I want to get into, what I think is so incredibly interesting about Create is revenue and headcount. Could you give us an overview? You guys are only 2 years old, 18 months old, something like that. What scale are you guys hitting? How many people is it taking, and where do you see it going?
Yeah. So we have our 2-year anniversary in 9 days. So just about 2 years old. We'll do about 20 to 22 million in net revenue this year.
Jeez.
We have 6 full-time employees now. I think notably for the first 18 months or so, it was just me and a bunch of outsourced agencies and partners. I made a total 180 on how to build a D2C team. I think transparently, I was super late on bringing a lot of those competencies in house, and was probably giving some bad advice on Twitter about how to build a D2C team for a while. But yeah, so today it's call it 20 to 22 million in net revenue, about 6 full-time employees, and growing really quickly from a revenue perspective, but likely not from a headcount perspective.
What's you don't have to answer, but I feel like you've been pretty transparent, which I really appreciate and applaud you for, just how transparent you've been online, the good and the bad. What's payroll as a percentage of revenue?
Yeah, we just started October is our first full month of payroll, so I don't have the exact number for you, but I want to say something around $80,000 of payroll.
Okay, awesome, cool. What are those roles that you brought in house?
Yeah, so the 2 co-founders of the business, my fiance and I, she runs finance and operations, and we both kind of veer in and out on a bunch of different topics within the business, but we are the 2 co-founders of the business. And then we have 4 other employees. One is an SVP of marketing. She oversees growth and brand, really probably should be starting her own company at some point. She's a very talented operator from a marketing perspective, but really just understands how to run one of these businesses. And so we brought her on as our first employee. She's probably worth 4 or 5 full-time employees in and of herself. She brought on a video editor as a full-time employee, which is not where I would have immediately gone. It seems like a role that you otherwise could pretty easily fill with an agency or an outsourced partner, but we brought that on full-time right away. And that's been a really good decision. We pump out ads and content at a super high clip today. We have a head of operations, a influencer and social media marketing manager. And yeah, so that's the team of 6.
Taylor Holiday would love that second hire. I couldn't help but think of that when you said that. That was his big hot take. 2 months ago? Your next.
He said it should be your highest paid. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I can't divulge whether or not she's our highest paid, but I would say super this role. It sounds silly, and then when you think about it a little bit, it's all right, these businesses at this point kind of are just video editing businesses. You obviously need product, you need a bunch of other things to make it happen beyond the scenes, but your ability to produce high quality short form video is, if not the most important thing, one of the most important things that probably all of our businesses do.
And that's what I like about the original premise or the business model, right? Is it's this relatively low SKU count, high margin, high LTV product. If you have product market fit with those sorts of economics, then you are, I love the idea. You're just like a media company. You're just how do we create enough ads? How do we position this correctly? And in that case, it's of course you want someone who can edit videos.
Totally. Yeah. You want someone that can edit videos. You want someone that can interface with creators that are featured in those videos. And then you want someone that can kind of allocate budget properly across all the places that you're inserting those videos. So, it's a obviously we take our the product really seriously. There's a whole outsourced team kind of behind us on the product side of things. The dirty secret with the supplements industry is that very few people are actually manufacturing their supplements. Everyone partners with co-manufacturers that go through the super rigorous certifications, CMGP, NSF, kosher. There's all of these certifications that make it super hard to start one of these facilities. And then once you do start it, you can service, call it 3 to 10 brands within a certain product category. And so our business, like almost every business in the supplement category, works with manufacturing partners that handle the vast majority of the heavy lifting when it comes to product.
Totally. Well, what was the 180? It's been a while since I've read your tweets from a year ago, but like what was that transition from how you initially started the company to what the plan is now from a org perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think there was something romantic and probably egotistical. Like at the time, I loved the idea of I can kind of just run this business by myself. I'm not particularly good at anything, but I'm not bad at anything either. Like I understand how growth marketing works. I have a decent brand eye. The product is something like operations. You can kind of figure out if with a little bit of elbow grease, and like I grew up in operations. So it was something where I thought that I could kind of get pretty far just with the toolkit that I'd built myself over like the decade or so in e-commerce. And then in terms of actually producing a lot of the work output, could just partner with best in class agencies, freelancers, consultants to actually produce a lot of like the actual work output. That was true, and it allowed us to move really, really quickly for the first, call it 18 months. And I'm not sure if you guys, I feel like I've heard you, Connor, speak about this before, but like, and probably both of you, Connors, around, hey, just kind of go through phases within the business with agencies where sometimes they're super helpful, and then all you really want is to have full control, and you can only have full control if they're full-time employees. And then you kind of swing the pendulum back a little bit where actually an agency really helpful to kind of outsource and get some of that expertise back injected into the business. And so we're just kind of in that phase of the business where we're from everything fully outsourced to bringing everything in-house so we have full control. And I'm sure at some point we'll outsource some of these activities, or at least bring additional help on from agencies and freelancers in the future. But that's the 180 is that one, I quickly learned that I'm quite limited in terms of my capacity to care about something 18 hours a day, every day, and like bring the same level of energy that I needed to for the business to continually grow like 10 to 30% month over month. And two, it's just way more fun to do it with people that are just as bought in as you are on a day-to-day basis. Like,
Totally.
love agencies, whatever, but like they only care as much as like you could have an agency that's your best friend, and then you churn off that agreement, and you never hear from them again. They don't check in on your business. It turns out they don't necessarily care about your business. They just want to service you as a client. But employees generally, they have a little bit more skin in the game, care a lot more, and generally are able to kind of go more all in.
Totally. Love it. Yeah, we've gone back and forth. And then Cody, I'd love your take on this because I know you guys have done a lot of hiring this year, but we've gone back and forth, insourcing and outsourcing. I got what at times has been great advice and at other times has been terrible advice. It's really up to it's user error ultimately. But I was at the Manscaped office in 2020 and they were like, yeah, we hate outsourcing. They were huge. They were like, they were going to do 150 million that year, all internal team, just super tactical, like had great managers, came from different agency backgrounds, so just like knew how to execute. And I was like, dude, that is awesome. And I think for a while we like took that approach, and that is super valid if you hire correctly and you know what you're doing. But then you hit this point where you become like self-reliant to a fault. And that's where I think you end up like wanting to seek outside expertise, extend bandwidth, and not be as, dependent on your own ability to execute. So we've gone back and forth. But Cody, what's that look like for you guys? I know you've hired a lot this year. Was it insourcing? Was it just net new roles? How are you guys thinking about it?
Yeah, we hired a lot. I would say I've always been pro in-house, and I think for a lot of roles it makes sense. But I think I was on the opposite end of the spectrum from Dan. I was like, I had an ego thing about in-house. I was like, we're gonna do it in-house. We're gonna bring it in-house. I just like thought it was better. I kind of started with that with like paid media, and like, I stand by that. I mean, it really just depends like what your background is. But I think, for the majority, you should have media buying in-house because it's important and it's commoditized, and you've got to understand like your, that's your biggest line item. So you really have to understand how that impacts bottom line contribution margin. And that's going to be easier to have that communication internally to talk with your demand planning team and your stuff like that. Like if you're trying to take it beyond just like in-platform media buying. But I also think you'll be able to align incentives better. I think creative, it depends. And we've gone back and forth. We just made a pretty big hire of a new creative strategist who will start in January. But we've worked with agencies. We work with agencies. Yeah. So we're a mix. Like we don't have dev internally. We have a dev agency. You know,
Right.
we're letting them do, design as well. We'll still work with some creative agencies. We have an agency for TV buying. So it's mixed. It depends. I think you want to just try to align incentives as much as possible. I think you got to figure out, like, be really true to yourself. Like, where are your strengths as a brand? And then I think you will do some fluctuating between insourcing and then outsourcing. I will say, as things grow, and I'm super jealous of Dan's business at 6 employees. I think all of us wish we were at that, and we're that lean. But there's a lot of additional costs that come with bringing people internally that just compound at scale. You can't just be like, oh, I'm paying this agency $10K a month so I can hire somebody for $120K a year. Like, really, you can hire somebody for $85K a year, equivalent to that, if you're giving 401K and bonus, and we give everybody lunch, and we've got rent and stuff like that. So yeah, if I were to do it again, I mean, I would stay as lean as possible, and I would probably do a lot more outsourcing and overseas work than we currently do.
Cody, listening to you deliver that very polished and stately answer reminded me to congratulate you on the new role.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, dude, huge faux pas. We didn't start the show with that. My bad.
Edit that in.
Yeah, but now we might have to kick Cody off the show because now he's a CEO. Now he's an operator.
But he's a marketer at heart. That's what I told him before.
Yeah, and they're not going to have me on the show, so you guys are stuck with me. They already got 4.
So I have a question for you, Dan, about your team stack. Is this SVP? Because like you guys are. I mean, what channels are you on? You're on Facebook. You're probably doing a lot of retention. You have a nice website that looks like you're updating regularly. I mean, I just looked at it. It had a lot of seasonal updates to it. So someone's designing that, deving that, building it out. Like, is this SVP, like, what are they doing on a day-to-day? Like, are they pretty like hands-on keyboard? Are they hands-on keyboard in some things, but not others? Like, you have to outsource some stuff, I would imagine, because like in like what does that mix look like between like what that person's doing, and then I assume maybe they're also managing some outsourced resources. Like I'm curious what's that person's role like, and what's that like responsibility stack look like?
Yeah. So the SVP of marketing title, I think probably she's super deserving of it, and probably you would see that and think that the person's not super involved in the day-to-day tactics of the business. Essentially, she runs our growth and brand marketing on a day-to-day basis. She has a team underneath her internally, but she also has a number of roles that are outsourced, whether it's like TikTok media buying, which is something that we don't need to develop a core competency in, but we need to do on a day-to-day basis. We'll outsource little things like that to freelancers. So she's managing internally, she's managing teams externally, she's working with us to set goals, hold the rest of the team accountable to those goals, make sure, like you said, that we are executing against our marketing calendar, undertaking opportunities like AppLovin pops up. We're like, oh, we had never thought about AppLovin. What do we need to do as a team or a company to like get on this platform quickly, make sure we have the assets we need to succeed, get integrations and analytics set up to make sure we're properly measuring it. So there's like a million different things that she's really, running the marketing side of the business at a super high level, everything from like setting forecasts and goals and building team structure, all the way down to like, all right, she's going to author for the AppLovin integration on Northbeam. So she's like everything from the smallest task to the largest task. And that's kind of what we needed to bring in for this role on a lean team. It would have been pretty disastrous to bring in like a traditional, and I think you guys all have this perspective on like what a CMO is. But someone that's just like very.
This isn't the podcast to like hate on CMOs. Just want you to know you're talking.
No, I love CMOs. But
no, I know you mean.
It would have been pretty disastrous to bring in a big company CMO that didn't have any expectations around day-to-day marketing task management. She has.
You didn't need a Unilever marketer for 10 years coming in to help grow Create Gummies. That their best skill set is making a nice deck that represents how they spent $100 million with no attribution to show. Yeah. I totally get what you're saying.
I just shit on CMOs on the CMO podcast. if I was to shit on Unilever, who's our largest investor, that would be a double whammy. So love CMOs, love Unilever.
That's hilarious.
That's awesome. What about like retention? Like I'm curious who's like, so all right, retention, tell me about retention, tell me about web, like affiliate,
Yep.
like who's running those
Who's
channels?
doing the work? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah, who's doing the work? So we still utilize like agencies and freelancers. Retention.
Yeah.
We were with two guys for a while that didn't have name recognition, but were awesome. We moved over to Structured, which maybe some of you worked for previously or definitely worked with in the past. And they're basically running our emails, like 8 to 10 emails a month. And then you pay for the incremental emails on top of it, build out flows, help us execute against a marketing calendar, website. This was like a big change for me in the last 10 years. Like when I was at Away, we had teams and teams of engineers. We were running on what was called Solidus on the time. And it's essentially backend for e-commerce websites. Shopify, we kind of just like did a one-time build and then can maintain things pretty easily without too many dev resources. So we don't have an agency of record for maintaining the website or doing development work. We will sometimes bring in people to build landing pages. That's another thing. Like the website's great and important, I guess, but the vast majority of our traffic runs through Replo landing pages that are disconnected from the website. And so I guess to answer your question, like, yes, we still utilize a bunch of outsourced experts, but now it's just like managed by an internal team of 6 versus just
Right.
What about creative as well? Like, are you building any creative? I feel like you guys have a strong like creator influencer, network. Is that done internally? Is that, agency? How do you guys source creative?
Yeah, so that's all internal. We have an influencer / social media manager that is reaching out to creators, managing the content flow, giving deliverables or giving scripts, getting deliverables, holding people accountable, which is a big thing with creators. And then that's all passed off to our video editors, taking that content and cutting it up organically for organic content or cutting it up into ads. But that's like one of the core workflows that we do have now fully in-house.
So you've got, it sounds like a very like, as it stands now, it sounds pretty scalable, right? You mentioned hitting 22-ish this year. The first full month of payroll was October. So a lot of these people I know you hired in like the back half of the year, essentially. How much are you looking to hire more from here, and what does that look like? And then how large do you think Create can get with, X amount of heads?
Yeah. So we were just doing our 2025 planning today. I won't say exactly what we're aiming for from a top line perspective, because that's only going to set ourselves up to fail there. But we're expecting, call it 2 to 4x growth year over year from a top line perspective. Headcount, we plan on adding 3 to 5 more full-time people, which would be doubling the team. And so if we double revenue and double headcount, that's still great leverage on that headcount, just the way the absolute numbers work out. But we think we can achieve that, call it 3 to 4x scenario as well with a similar level of headcount, because the business, as you guys all know, with your business models, just scales really nicely from a marketing perspective. So if you can identify a few winning ads, you can scale hundreds of thousands of dollars a day against that. And it doesn't take a ton more resources to service that scaling piece of ad, that scaling piece of ad creative, which is a long way of saying we think that this business model specifically has a ton of leverage behind it from a headcount perspective.
Totally. Did you have anything, Connor?
I'm curious, is the SVP of marketing, are they just like the point person, like the guardrails, the orchestrator of all these other components, whether it's internal team, outsourced team, like, are they managing all this so you can go focus on other parts of the business that are, outside of growth marketing and brand marketing?
Yeah. So that piece of the business is where I would say focus the vast majority of my attention still.
Okay.
We said this at the top, but like essentially these are growth and brand marketing companies. And so I think it's super important for the leader to be like very involved in those activities. Despite the fact that this SVP of marketing is extremely competent and I have full trust in her and she's done it before. It's still like, in order for me to be a good CEO of the company, it's my belief that I need to be very good at growth marketing and brand marketing. So I am involved in, the day-to-day very heavily on that side of the business still.
Did you know that platforms over-report performance 65% of the time? In a recent study, House found that 82% of incrementality experiments showed that platform reporting was either under-reporting or over-reporting by more than 25%, and 60% of the experiments showed discrepancies of more than 50%. This is why marketers are moving away from platform attribution towards incrementality measurement in order to maximize their growth and efficiency. This is one of the many reasons that the three of us, Connor, Cody, and I, all work with House. So what is House? It's a self-serve experimentation platform that allows you to configure regional tests and control experiments to measure incrementality and identify points of diminishing returns. What does that really mean? They tell you, hey, these are the 40 zip codes you need to exclude from this campaign, and we can look at what results did you drive in the targeted regions compared to that holdout group. Really awesome. We use it all the time. As an example, we just identified a lot of our non-branded Ring search and shopping campaigns were not nearly as incremental as Google was reporting. So we've been growing our Ring business over 100% year over year and spending less on Google. So we've been able to be more efficient with every dollar spent. House is built with cutting edge methods by PhD economists and data scientists who have built these solutions before at companies like Amazon and Google. The House platform allows you to test all your marketing channels, both online and offline, measure the impact across all your sales channels, D2C, retail, Amazon, and calibrate your platform reporting for incrementality with House. Discover your marketing's true ROI and unlock new growth with House. Go to house.io/operators, spelled HAUS.io/operators to start your incrementality practice today. So one question I had written down, so I know you guys saw it, but I was like, we're obviously talking about this incredibly high leverage team. And the reason I was so interested is I think we just see more and more of this. Zach Stuck in it as an example, Dan in the Create team as an example. I talk to more and more teams that are doing 20, 30, 40, 50 million plus at $4 to $5 million in revenue per full-time employee, which I just think is very unique. Bridge in 2024 will land at over 2. We'll be at 2.2, something like that, which I feel actually great about. That's higher than it was.
Million per employee?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me do our math. I always do just payroll as a percentage of revenue.
Right.
I think I have a hot take here on this whole and this is going to seem like bullshit because I just did this for the past 2 years and talked about it a lot, but it seems super easy now to start one. Every white dude on the internet is now starting a hydration stick pack company, right? Everyone has now seen that. They've seen these case studies out on Twitter where it's oh, you can have a 1 to 2 person team and start a $16 million, supplements business. Now everyone is doing it, which is only going to make it harder and harder and harder. And essentially what I think is going to happen is that it turns out that doesn't really last. That doesn't really last for years and years and years, right. Which is what it takes for one of these businesses to ultimately be successful or to have a successful outcome. And so I think we're already seeing it, a bunch of very, very mid supplement brands started by 1 or 2 half-ass, they're half committed to running the brand, pop up over the next 1 or 2 years because it's now super easy. There's services like Keychain to source manufacturers. There's a whole ecosystem around marketing agencies. Shopify makes it super easy. All the things that I certainly benefited from and kind of shitting on myself right now. But I think there's going to be this wave of people that see what a few examples do around starting these 1 to 2 man supplement businesses, think it's super easy. And then basically 18 months in, realize that maybe this wasn't the best choice. And I think that's all good and well, other than the fact that I don't know if I want a bunch of mid supplement brands out there. That's not the category where I think you want someone kind of half-assing the job when there are health products. If there's one Keychain, it seems like they have a great business and all that, but I don't want any Joe Schmo off the street to be able to go and easily source a creatine gummy and then sell it on their Shopify website without any kind of commitment to certifications and health and safety and all the things that like it takes to run one of these over the long term. And again, I say that with like the full recognition that I just did that over the past 2 years, and like maybe I'm just talking my own book here, but
you care, and you can tell you care. And I think like that, it's natural selection, right? The people that don't care are going to have a low efficacy product. Their consumer is going to figure that out. Like natural selection is gonna win out there. But that is interesting. Like what what did you have to do to start selling a product on the internet that people are going to eat multiple times a day? Like is it scary easy? Like should I be concerned right now about the food products I'm buying online?
Well, I think for better or worse, it's much easier to start one of these businesses today. And there's going to be companies that take that responsibility really, really seriously. And there's going to be companies that frankly don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really, really hard to tell the difference between those two companies. We operate in a category where like, and you guys, I'm sure all had knockoffs. Our number one knockoff, I'll call them out right here. It's a company called Beast Bites. They have 0 creatine in their product. They're selling a completely fake product to hundreds of thousands of like mostly teenagers on TikTok. And there's just like not much that the regulatory bodies can do about that. And there's only so much you can do around educating the consumer around, hey, like this product is fake. You're taking it for health and wellness reasons, and it's completely fake. So I guess no shade at Beast Bites other than you sell a fake product, but yeah.
But it's a great point that like I was making the point around right now being an opportune time to build these like really high leverage businesses. Your point being in specific categories, because mine was not supplement specific. It's obviously supplements. There's a really clear path there with the AOVs, with the LTVs, their consumption products. But you're saying in certain categories, those things will just get competed away. Creatine maybe being an example, or whatever else. You look at like coffee alternatives, probably same sort of boat where a brand 5 years ago, it was kind of, there was a lot of white space to have a coffee alternative. You could be a really lean team and scale it really far. I still don't think that gets around. I still think at the end of the day, and this is, I think what Create is that you are still choosing a business model that just inherently has higher leverage to it, right? Versus you were at Away or even at Ridge, where it's like growth for us looks like massive new products, new categories, new products within those categories. They're incredibly low LTV relative to a supplement brand. That is just inherently harder to scale. And I think entrepreneurs today are maybe choosing to build more economically advantageous businesses. And then the tools are available and the outsource agencies are there. And, the whole space is more mature so that you actually can scale it. And you guys are doing it in really high integrity way so that you can also achieve that great outcome that you're looking for. And I just think that's a really exciting time. Like, I just think I'm super excited. Zach Stuck and his sock brand that he's very public about now, another example of doing 20 million plus with, I don't know what he'd consider full-time employee on that brand, but it's like 4 or 5. Yeah, it's like really small. And that's just it's cool to be a part of that. And that's why I like kind of geeking out on him.
Yeah. And that whole tirade was not to discourage entrepreneurship and people starting their own businesses. It was more so just around the fact that like, I'm sure we all know or are in group chats where someone's like, oh, I'm going to start a supplements brand. And I'm not sure that's the category where we want everyone like jamming out on side projects is around supplements that we're ingesting every day.
That's super fair. And not being willing to eat whatever you get an ad for on Instagram seems like a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like there were like 3 phases of D2C. Like I feel like DTC 1.0 was like Away and Casper, where it's like, let's raise a ton of money. Let's build these giant teams. Let's spend a ton. That didn't work out great. I feel like DTC 2.0 is kind of like Ridge and Hexclad and Jones Road. It's kind of like, hey, let's bootstrap this thing, but like let's grow it. But we're also growing, pretty big company, pretty big team as well. Probably not quite the same leverage as you and Zach have. And I feel like this DTC 3.0 is kind of like what you guys have going on, which I can tell because I know I feel the same way when Connor talks about it. Like he's just jealous. Like he just wishes that he had that. Like I do. Like 4 employees, I'm like, hell yeah! Like you just sit around and run Facebook ads all day. Like that's
my life
so
would be
amazing.
a little stressful. That's for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like that's this like new wave where like these tools are available. And don't get me wrong, you still need product market fit. Like I think you have that. I can tell you guys iterate and also launch new product lines and categories. You're just doing it in this really high leverage way, like Connor's saying. And these tools are available, like Shopify, like Replo, like Rich Panel, like all of these things that just make it really efficient.
Motion, pressions.
All of them, get them in there, Northbeam. Yeah, but like these tools that just make it very easy, where you can get a Replo template and test, and you don't need, a team of engineers like you had at Away, and you're just able to do a lot of these things yourself. So I just think this new phase of D2C is really fun and cool to watch as well.
If I could jump in quickly, because I do not deny there's a bit of jealousy, but what I think is what I get to, and I talk about with the team, and we've talked about this before a little bit on previous episodes, is like identifying those areas of high leverage and still instilling that within the business, right? Like I think that's why we build out like our creative pods, where it's like I want a team of I want a media buyer and I want a creative strategist who's sourcing content creators to zero in on how are we selling luggage, and we've got our offer, and then we're allocating budget. So Dan's team of 5 or 6 is basically what, like, I want that little pod existing within Ridge trying to scale travel. And then as we scale, actually, let's say they're scaling wallets. As they scale wallets, that will trickle down, and that will sell knives, and that will sell pens, and that will give brand awareness around rings and things like that. So it's like you want to build that tip of the spear, that high leverage kind of piece of the business, and scale that, because I just don't see any way around growing without doing that. So it doesn't look all that different. That's why I wouldn't say it's like total jealousy. I just think we also have to support like a more complex business. We just do, from a product category channel perspective, like have a lot more going on, requires more people to manage.
And in reverse, I'm super jealous of each of the ways that your 3 businesses show up in like such a polished and when you do something, you do it in a big way, whether it's new product categories with Ridge, like you launch luggage and everyone knows you're launching luggage, whether it's Hexclad, you're partnering with the Yankees and not just doing it in like a one-off Instagram post, but you go throughout New York City and you see it on billboards, you see it on the Yes Network, like you're doing things in a very cohesive way. And then with Jones Road, you guys are doing retail in a big way. And it's not like you're launching like one little retail store as like a kind of a de facto billboard. Like it's a full retail strategy, and you have the resources and the teams to see a lot of these things out in like a way that has more lasting power than a lot of the things that these brands that are high leverage don't really have. A lot of the things I will say but generally these lower leverage brands or higher leverage brands with less resources, a lot of things we do are just more ephemeral. Like there's not as much lasting power behind the brand campaigns or the omni-channel strategies or the product expansion. So there's pros and cons to each, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good takeaway. I've got. This is a bit of a tangent from the current conversation, but I had written down, and I don't know how true this is or not. Is there a way, like internally, you guys are, whether it's like, project managing or having meetings, that you're also trying to make employees as high leverage as possible? Does it just naturally happen, or like, does it naturally happen given the business model? Or are you also taking a concerted effort internally? Like, are you using AI? Are you using unique tools to like try to make, from an org perspective, yourselves as scalable as possible?
I know you guys specifically at Ridge, I'm not sure at Hexclad and Jones Road, but I know you guys are really good about recording meetings and notes and doing things in a very structured way. I'm terrible about that personally because I can't do it. I feel weird holding other people accountable to like meeting agendas and note taking and recordings and all of that. That is something where we're not great at using AI beyond just like everyone having a ChatGPT plus subscription. I would say where we are good at kind of moving quickly and finding leverage is just like, I'm pretty lax about decisions. Like, everyone kind of has the agency to make decisions within their piece of the business. And if it's the right decision, I'll celebrate it. And if it's ultimately the wrong decision, I'm pretty quick to kind of just move on and to the next activity, next decision. And so that's where within our kind of high leverage team, we can find more leverage. It's less around like the tools or the productivity hacks or the meeting setups or things like that.
Are you guys thinking at all about how to make internal employees higher leverage through like any unique sort of workflows or new tools?
I think it's up to the leader to facilitate goal setting and accountability to that goal setting. Like because I'm the same as Dan. Like the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch of time being hyper anal about like the formatting that someone comes to a one-on-one with, or like I'm what my job is to say, hey, like here's how you and I get the most value out of this one-on-one. Here's the information that comes to that. Like here's a format that I found work. But like, I don't need every person that reports into me to have the same exact formatting, as long as the information they're bringing to that call is the same, or the way that, or they're sharing like their updates and their progress they're making towards their keywords. Like honestly, every person I report to, they're doing the same thing, but in different ways. Like it's not a good use of my time to like be like micro anal about that. Like it's my job to produce great outcomes. And as long as we're doing that, I don't really care how each individual like updates me or tells me the progress they're making on their key results. Now where that changes is if all of a sudden the format they're using or how they're giving me information, it's not productive. Like all of a sudden we're not spending good use of our time, or they're not reaching their key results, right? Like to me, the only time I've ever fired people is when I have repeatedly outlined and agreed and shook hands with them on what we need to do, and they've repeatedly not done that. Like that's the only way I'll really fire someone, and outside of like inside like just work performance, I guess guidelines, like other, there's things outside of that, like you do something crazy but whatever. But like, it's not Dan's best use of time to like go and micro manage that. Like get the information you need, produce the outcomes you need, set expectations clearly, and like the rest of it's going to take care of itself, no matter whether you use like a super tight templated one-on-one document or an AI tool to like summarize things. Like all that's kind of noise, in my opinion. It's like whatever works best for you works best for you.
I love that answer.
I would say the one thing where I have seen kind of correlation between someone's ability to be like good at technology and good at the job is, and this will probably have some disagreement here, but like if you're good at Slack, communicating in Slack, you're generally pretty good at e-commerce. Very seldom do I find someone that's like a poor communicator on Slack, either in how they structure their messages or how responsive they are, or how clear they are in their writing, and they're bad at their job. Like I feel like that's a hard thing to game. And so if I am a stickler, and this is weird, but like I'm a little bit of a stickler around how people communicate in Slack. Like I expect a certain level.
If it turned to me, I was about to share. I want to hear what you guys do, but I'm so anal about it.
Yeah, like there's a certain level of professionalism is the wrong word, but like when you're communicating, and I came from a way where like famously, unfortunately, like everything was written in Slack, I think at the time. And so that has kind of stuck with me, where it was a culture where like you're kind of measured how good you were at Slack was like how good you were at your job. And that was probably overkill. But again, today, like I that's the tight correlation I find between how serious does somebody take communicating in Slack and how good they are at their job.
Two most important things in e-commerce: naming conventions and Slack.
That's all it takes. 9 figures from there.
Yeah. No, I think it's, I guess, a cultural thing. I have this just like type A Jewish anxiety. So I'm just like, for me, nothing is ever like good enough, or like, no, we're never moving fast enough. So it's just like always go. Like, why does this need to be a meeting? Like, that's like one thing like I'll see in Slack yesterday. So like, yeah, like why does this need to be a meeting with 8 people? Like just send a fucking Slack and I can say yes or no to it, or things like that. Like, I think just being really thoughtful about how you're spending your time and what are you doing and what are you wasting time on. As few meetings as possible, as process only to help increase how fast your teams can work, not to get in the way of it, right? Because I found at scale and as our team grows, you actually do need more process sometimes, because you have to repeat things when there's not a good process. So I've actually found that process can really help speed things up if you're taking a lot of time to it, but you also don't want processes that are slowing you down. But yeah, as few meetings as possible, getting really good at async communication, and then having the right people like like I think even this conversation about, the SVP is interesting, because like what I've learned, like, especially we've hired a lot of directors, like I really want senior ICs, and like, Silicon Valley has 10x engineers. Like I want employees that have 10x output. Like, give you an example, like we had a director of people, earlier and part of ways from like last year, like he wanted like 4 people on his team, and he was just like super slow. We hired a director of people this year, got, maybe one person on her team. She's an office manager. She hired 27 people this year by herself, on top of doing everything else. And granted, like I get slacks from her at night, and like the goal isn't always to work at night, but like you want people that when they are there, they are efficient. They're working their butt off. They're not taking 2-hour lunch breaks. So I think some of that is just, we just really want like this like senior, strong individual contributors. And I would much rather pay somebody, $200K that can get way more done than get, 3 people at $100K each. I think those, and then, yeah, even these like these like communication guidelines. Yeah. It's like everything we do is in a channel, because I got so sick of back and forth private DMs, and you have to do it to one person, and then, hey, she said this, what do you think of this? I'm like, just do it in a fucking channel, reply on the thread. I hate when it's not in a channel. So we have channels set up for everything, and when people reply below it, I'm like, no, reply in the thread, please. It just like saves so much time. You can just like, versus having to be like, hey, product said this and op said this. I'm like, just put it in the appropriate channel. I can follow it. Like you can say yes or no on it. So I think there's a lot you can do. I'm not saying like AI has changed the game on any of it, but I think hiring the right people, just having that culture of intensity and urgency, and then being diligent with your communication, meetings, that kind of stuff.
We've been talking about upper funnel channels a lot, especially leading up into, peak moments. And honestly, it's been one of the biggest unlocks for us as a business is, helping us reach net new customers and getting them into our funnel. But the challenge is historically, this stuff is very difficult to measure. You're not going to see it, in platform ROAS clicks. So one of our secret weapons this year has been Prescient AI. We onboarded with them about midway through the year, and it's been a game changer in helping us to measure some of these very difficult to measure upper funnel channels like TV, like linear TV, like streaming. They've been able to move really quickly. The team's been great and actually get betas up with new channels that we've been testing. So it's been great. We've been loving it. We're able to see and forecast if we were able to scale and spend on some of these channels, what our incrementality would look like. Prescient has become a really important part of our marketing workflow. It's one of the main tools that we use to set our budgets every month. And yeah, it's just become a really important, part of our stack that we feel like we can't live without at this point. We love the unbiased cross-channel measurement it has. Also love the halo effects where we're able to actually see how it's impacting. We're just on D2C, but I know brands that are on Amazon, they're able to get halo effects to actually see how their upper funnel spend and their D2C spend is impacting Amazon. So it's just become a really big part of our workflow, and I can't recommend it enough. We're using it. Hexclad is using it. Symbiotica, Coterie, and dozens more. Prescient's blowing up from everyone I talk to. Can't say enough good things about it. If you want to try it to measure some of these upper funnel channels that we're talking about, go to prescientai.com/operators to book a demo.
Totally unrelated question for you guys. For our business, like Q5 is perhaps more important than Q4. I know you all are very gifting and Cyber 5 focused. What does Q5 look like for you? Is it still like, because CPMs are lower, maybe purchase intent isn't as high for your categories, but because CPMs are generally much lower, is that an area where you're taking advantage, or is it really not as important outside of health and wellness?
We're kind of like habit forming adjacent. And historically, we actually have cut our sale like around last ship date for holiday, and then we'll run some sort of like gift card offer through the end of the year. But this year, A, because we have some big numbers we're going after, and B, because historically we have really strong Q1s. And for all the reasons you mentioned, we're actually planning just to run our offer right through December, even past holiday, because it's such a big, like, all right, it's January, I'm gonna start eating better, I'm gonna start cooking my own food, like that. Like, we have historically big Q1s, so we think that because of that, Q5 could be even bigger with us. Then you top that on less competition in the auction, less people are running offers. So we're gonna run it right through. We're not planning to even pivot the offer at this point. If it slows down, maybe we'll like rebrand it to get some fresh juice out of it. But our current offer stack, like, there's a lot of variability in the products that you could go after. The only caveat is that we've started stocking out of some things, but yeah, we're going to run it right through. And this will actually, though, be our first this will be our first year running like our holiday sale kind of right through Q5. So we haven't tried it in the past, but again, for all those reasons, we think it's going to hit pretty hard.
We're doing something somewhat similar. We'll be extending our like holiday sale offer a little bit later in the year. And then what gets interesting is, at least last year we saw travel was like seasonally really relevant. So like if you look back over the last like 8 years, we'd run like new year, new wallet, and there's some like nice messaging around reorganizing or decluttering that aligns with like the minimalist wallet. It's never all that impactful. It's not like someone's just resolving to reduce the size of their wallet in the way they might like go to the gym or cook better. But for travel, we saw it perform really well last late December and then early January this year. So we're actually going to shift a lot of our marketing efforts. And as we expand categories, it's just there's different seasonal periods. Like post Q5, we'll be in like a Valentine's Day mode. We'll focus on rings. So we're trying to adapt that way. And it just feels like more times out of the year, we have different categories that have some more seasonal relevance. And we're leaning into that a bit more.
We always do pretty well. December always takes us by surprise in a good way, where, you know, we don't have any offers or launches usually. And then January crushes. So yeah, definitely that period. You know, we always expect like after shipping cutoff, demand to die. And like there's a day or two around Christmas that's soft. And then right after it just picks up pretty hard. I think everyone realized they didn't get the gift that they wanted, so they buy it for themselves. And then obviously CPMs drop, and then it goes. I think beauty probably does pretty well. January, we always do really well, like extremely well in January. So I think we'll be really aggressive with it this year. Have some new strategies launching and some new products as well. But I think definitely, you know, we fall into that new year, new me thing. Not maybe quite as strong as health and wellness, but I think beauty is probably the second, would be my guess.
Are you guys doing anything different this year, Dan, or like any big plans to try to unlock further growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think Q5 generally, we are like directly in that lower CPM, higher purchase intent kind of Venn diagram, just being within creatine supplementation. And so we're looking to take advantage of trends there. We'll run kind of the standard new year, new you, new year, stronger you campaigns that I think play really well. But this period between like the 26th to the 15th of January was on our called Meta Today. From the 26th through the 1st in health and wellness, or through the 31st is 3x the scale of an average October day. And then from the 1st is 4x. And then each weekend up until basically March is 3x October scale for health and wellness.
Wow.
And so it's just a super important time for any product that's in our category. We're not doing anything super inventive there. We're launching new products, and we time that up to line with this higher intent. So there's something extra for us to talk about. But from a campaign perspective, pretty down the middle on it's a good time to kind of kick off resolutions and take your health seriously.
Dude, awesome. I actually want to talk about the product expansion because we talked about it being like low SKU, high LTV, but you guys are expanding SKUs. You've got the powder out now. Maybe there's more stuff coming.
Yeah.
What's the thought process behind that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny when you build a brand like diametrically like opposed to creatine powder, and then like you feel the need to launch a creatine powder. So the overarching goal of the business was like, let's build the modern creatine brand. It's going to be really hard to do that from a cold start with just another creatine powder. So let's create this category of the creatine gummy. And so that got us really far. But my view is that for every one person that buys creatine gummies, there's probably like 4 to 5 that will be more interested in a creatine powder. But we didn't want to just jump to the traditional kind of manifestation of what a creatine powder is. It comes in a 500-gram big plastic jug. It's inconvenient. It's messy. It's generally like super XXX branded for men specifically. And so we are putting it in single serve sticks, form factor that has kind of proven out to be really popular over the last couple of years for a bunch of reasons. You can do flavoring in single serve ways. It's more convenient. It's precise dosaging, really easy to travel with. And so we're putting it, creatine powder, in these single serve sticks. And surprisingly, we would probably do it anyway if the category was really crowded. But surprisingly, there's like a dearth of single serve creatine products on the market right now. So it's something we're really excited about. But yeah, I think that the general idea here is like, we want to build the creatine brand. And in order to do that, we need to produce creatine products that people want, and people want creatine powder.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. It reminds me, my friend at Dr. Squatch, like they had a very similar approach where they create the brand around this like natural bar soap, which is awesome. And you could scale that business, high LTV, all these things. But then this was their Sydney Sweeney video. They railed against the body wash that like had all these chemicals or whatever. And the Sydney Sweeney video a couple months ago that went super viral was like, they were like, yeah, people in Walmart, in Target, at Costco want just a body wash. They don't want like a fancy natural bar soap. So it's cool to see like you actually, the beachhead is with some like novel form factor. And then it's like, okay, at the end of the day, people do want the powder or the body wash.
Yeah, I feel like with all these businesses, like it's always a balance between how hard and fast you are to these like brand rules, whether it's, we don't do sales. Like Away famously didn't do discounts or Black Friday for a while. And then it turns out that like it's really helpful for top line to run sales sometimes when people are looking to buy suitcases. Same thing here. It's like we hate creatine powder. Oh, we don't hate creatine powder. It just wasn't advantageous for us at the time to launch a creatine powder, and now it is. And so I think that's kind of one of the learnings here is that you should be flexible with how you show up as a brand, and ultimately just kind of listen to what the consumer wants and try to deliver a product or service that meets those needs in a way that doesn't totally go against everything you stand for, but kind of meets the consumer halfway.
It's just it's an absolute masterclass in positioning. Like you guys have taken a product that's existed for a long time and has had a lot of like negative connotation, and you put it in the most approachable, fun way to eat a food in the world, which is a gummy. Like it's just, I always talk about like one of my first experience with an e-com brand and scaling one was when I was actually at Zach Stuck's agency working on a brand called She's Birdie. They took an existing technology and they just positioned it brilliantly. They said, we are a safety brand by women for women. They took an existing technology, a safety alarm. They packaged it in a pastel-y modern feel, and they made it just like really fun and exciting. They put a little carabiner on it that made you want to clip it to your backpack. Like I feel like you got the way that you're growing and like positioning creates not too indifferent from that. Like you just have made it so accessible and fun and enjoyable, whereas it wasn't before. And it's just like, I think you guys are doing great marketing, but I think that's like the baseline of all this that makes your great marketing work really well is how your brand and product are positioned.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to like we would always get questions when we were first kind of coming up with the business and pitching it and whatever, like, oh, so it's just like creatine in a gummy? And the answer is yes, it's just creatine in a gummy, but like the marginal or incremental convenience of the gummy, like most people are much more convenient with a gummy versus a powder. And with something like creatine that you need to take every day to see the kind of the full benefits of it, that's just like general, like that marginal convenience, especially for people that are lazy, which is everybody. It tends to have like a big impact on how they interact with the product.
I don't know what your guys' like morning stacks look like in terms of like vitamins and things, but I am approaching gummy exhaustion. The other morning I had my 3 Create gummies. I had some Grunes gummies that team sent me some. Then I had some fiber gummies. I'm like, all right, this is the novelty's wearing off on me, guys. So yeah, maybe I'll switch to the powder.
Yeah, no, I feel kind of the same way. I'm like building a little creatine set. I take like 10 to 15 grams of creatine. Most people are taking somewhere between 5 to 10. So I can have a few gummies, have some powder, eat a lot of steak, and kind of stack it together that way. But I would agree. Everyone's launching a gummy product now, which is great, and I think ultimately will be good for the category leaders. But there's only so many gummies you can eat during the day.
Totally. So I think we've got a test of the week to hit. Anything else we want to talk about before we go there? I got
one question. How'd you get Rogan talking about you?
So he was talking about creatine gummies in general. This was like 6 months ago. So it turns out Joe Rogan, the formula for that podcast is he could have any guests in the world on that podcast. And he brings the conversation back to aliens, trans people playing sports, the JFK assassination, MK Ultra, and now for whatever reason, Joe Rogan feels the need to talk to whoever's on the podcast. It could be Elon Musk or it could be Derek Moore Plays More Dates. He feels the need to talk about creatine. He starts with the same line every time. He's like, "Have you seen these studies on creatine? It actually turns out that it's really helpful for sleep deprivation." Literally every other podcast now he brings up that sentence. But he talked about creatine gummies like, I don't know, 3 to 4 months ago. I DM'd him on Instagram. Within 2 minutes, he responds being like, "No, I'm actually not taking your brand, but send me some." And so we've just been sending him gummies forever now, or I guess the last 3 to 4 months. He never mentioned us by name. And then this past week with Derek More Plays More Dates, he like called us out by name and confirmed that he's been taking our product now for a little bit. Yeah, super helpful for
That's
business.
awesome. And yeah, I was gonna say, any lift from that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dude, the long-term Rogan effect is insane. We still get people saying they heard about us from Joe Rogan, and that happened 2 winters ago, that he like plugged us organically on his feed. It's insane. I mean, we didn't see a big bump. For us, it wasn't a big bump. It was like small bump, and then like we still see Rogan as one of our top responses as like the second question when people select podcast. It's fucking awesome.
I mean, there's a world in which the forever chemicals conversation becomes one of his he works into every conversation.
Yeah.
And in that world, he could be talking about, how Hexclad is the product that he chooses to stay away from those chemicals.
Yeah.
That would be good for everybody.
Did you guys see after the election, everyone was like, the left needs a Joe Rogan to go on?
Yeah.
I feel like makeup needs a Joe Rogan podcast to go on.
Well, did you know it's funny? Joe Rogan sounds like known Create user, known Hexclad user, known Ridge Wallet user. He could listen to the marketing operators as far as we know.
We just got to get one more product in there on them.
Have you
Dude,
bought
he just
ads
needs
with
some miracle
Rogan?
bomb.
Yeah.
No.
Connor?
No, for a long time we sponsored like anybody. We talked about like Joe Rogan Peripheral. This was like 2019, 2020. Like anybody, any alt comic that would be on the pod, we would sponsor them. So it was like Tiger Belly, Theo Von, all those guys. Tony Hinchcliffe we sponsored for a while. So we like peppered around him, and then he's mentioned a couple of times that he uses the Ridge Wallet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are so good at identifying that wave of creator that's about to become super, super famous. Who do you think that is over the next 1 to 2 years?
Well, dude, it's so tricky. I mean, we were so incredibly early to Theo Von. It was kind of crazy. The only people sponsoring his podcast were us and Gray Block Pizza, which is a local Santa Monica place. And we have 2 guys on the team. They both still work here. One is Sean, the CEO. His brother, James, is just like deep on podcasts and YouTubers. So like, he gets them early. And there were a number of examples of that early on. I think there's less of them now. It's just so much more competitive. People blow up faster. I don't have like a great, this creator is going to be huge in the next couple, months or whatever. I wish I did. We're working on it.
Luckily for us, we can just follow whoever's into it's like, oh, who just won the next season of Next Level Chef? All right, great. We are already deep in bed with Fox, and then we can, kind of jump off and leverage that to start a relationship with that creator. So like, all right, who won the latest cooking TV show? Like, great. We already have like inroads with them. Let's go figure something out.
Dude, that's insider influencer marketing. You got to be careful with that. Yeah,
exactly. Cut that out.
Connor, I think some unsolicited influencer advice for you. The Technology Brothers, I think, are going to be, I don't know if you've seen those guys. It's like John Coogan and Jordy Hayes.
Jordy
was, you know Jordy a little bit, right?
Yeah, Jordy was one of our first employees. Technology Brothers, huge plug for them. They are going to be huge. They have the perfect format. Those guys are awesome. I had dinner with them last week. They are going to crush it.
Where are they? Which channel? Are they a YouTuber?
No, there's a YouTube channel. I mostly listen to the podcast, but it's Tech Bros Pod on Twitter.
Okay, I'm adding it to the to-do list to look into this.
Yeah, they're really good. They have a very special format. We should sponsor it, frankly. Like, yeah, that's a great one. That I get similar vibes from them that I did from like early My First Million episodes. Sam Parr and Sean, like that thing clicked and you could kind of tell, and then it took off. And I do think Technology Brothers would be in that bucket too.
Yeah.
Tech Bro Talk, is that it or is that a different one?
Tech Bros Pod.
I'll have to have you send me the link.
We got plugged organically by My First Million. They were just talking about like Sam was talking like very untechnically about website and like just like the immediate brand valence you get sometimes from visiting a website. And he was like using ours as an example. He's like, he opens up our homepage like, I just immediately want to buy, and we should have jumped on it. We should have jumped on it in the moment. This was like a few months ago. I still kind of want to reach out to him and send him like a My First Million engraved, because that's what happened with Rogan. Like we sponsored a podcast episode and got a sweetheart deal on it. I think it was like 50 grand because someone backed out at the last minute. I'm like, all right, we got to go hard for Rogan. Like JRE logo on the middle of the pan, same with the cutting board, sent him a Kiri knife and a cleaver. And he fucking organically plugged us in feed, which I've never seen him do. It looked and felt like a paid for ad. And it was like the most like the best result you could have ever gotten from like an organic product seeding. And now I want to go back and do it for My First Million and see if we can get Sam Parr to start chatting about us on his Twitter and on his show a little bit more. Fingers crossed.
Totally. All right, Sick, you want to hit test? I think, Dan, did you put this in or someone else has the LP testing?
Oh, yeah. So I'm not sure I was super familiar with the test of the week format, but something we are testing, and maybe I'm totally not following the format here.
You're nailing it.
I don't know if you all are seeing this. We've tested a bunch of different landing page formats recently. And historically, listicles right now are working super, super well for us. Historically, they have not actually worked all that well for us. But for whatever reason, over the last, call it 4 weeks, seems to be outperforming any other landing page format that we're doing. Great thing about listicles is that you can pump out a ton of them super quickly and make it super targeted to whatever the ad is focused on. And so an easy one to kind of pump out a bunch of different iterations, not that hard to design in the first place, and seem to be working for us. And I'm sure that's not how this segment generally goes, but that is something that we're currently testing.
No, that works. And you're saying these landing pages have something specific about them? Like, are you speaking to a particular demo?
Yeah, exactly. So let's say the meta ad features a girl that goes to the gym, 5 reasons why gym girls are taking creatine gummies. Let's say the ad focuses with a 75-year-old dad talking about muscle loss. 5 reasons why people over 65 are taking creatine for sarcopenia. Things like that. You can get super, super niche on. You can also make general landing pages that like kind of capture a wider audience, but you can really narrow in. And those 5 reasons can kind of be the same regardless of whatever, like the top 2 can maybe be personalized to a specific audience, but beyond that, it's just like general company information because no one's ever reading beyond the first 1 or 2.
Yeah, big hacks. No, I love it. We've done a lot of that in the past as well, and it can be like pretty lightweight personalization between pages. Well, rad. Appreciate you contributing to the test of the week, Dan.
Can I ask a follow up on that? And then
of course.
How big of a lift have you seen? Because I've always wondered, and I'll see like Athletic Greens doing it, and we've tried some stuff, but like how big of an impact do you see from personalizing it, and like how specific should you make them? You know what I mean? Like, do you have just like a few pillars that you'll use, or is it like literally like this concept took off, I need to make a page for this concept? How much of an impact have you had, and how wide do you go with it?
Yeah, today I wouldn't say the true values and like how specific can you get. It's more just like you can easily build a landing page for these kind of demographic pools or these use case pools versus like kind of cross Venn diagram, like a bunch of different things to get a very specific point of the page. So it's like male, female, are they taking it for lifestyle or like very specific fitness goals? How old are they? But it's not like the most specific landing page crafted just for Cody.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right. I think we call it a wrap. That's a show. Dan, thanks so much for coming on, man. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
All right. Thanks again for Dan for coming on the Marketing Operators. I think it was a great episode. Hopefully you all feel the same. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends and your family. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Motion, Prescient, Rich Panel, and House.